Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's kind of a weird time. Usually at this time, people would be out in the streets partying, and it's a bit strange. It's really quiet. And if you're watching this live or if you're watching this soon after I put this back up for replay, you know why. Okay. But if you're watching this maybe a year later or maybe even more, you might have forgotten that on St. Patrick's Day in the year 2020 that we had this whole coronavirus pandemic going on. So it seems to be the thing that is in our mind first and foremost, and understandably, right? Um, Here we are in a very strange time that most of us have not lived in, but this is stuff that's been going on since the beginning of time, where we've had epidemics, pandemics, plagues. And really, the truth of it is, guys, bugs are here to stay. They were here before we were here. I think they're going to be here after. And we've actually even incorporated them into our bodies, which is what we're going to talk about tonight with the microbiome. So this is crazy times, crazy stuff, but I want to give you tools that you can use. You can use today, so you don't have to be sitting there feeling fear and panic and sort of paralyzed. Like, what do I do now? How can I keep myself and my family healthy? So let's dive into this. This month, we're focusing on all things having to do with having an optimum gut. And if you missed it on the first week, I gave an overview of what it takes to have optimal gut function. And then last week, I talked in depth about optimal digestion. So making sure that what you're eating is the nutrition is getting into your body. And as I said, tonight, we're going to delve into the secrets of an optimal microbiome. So, what the heck is your microbiome and what does it affect? I mean, what is this big hoopla? A lot of us know about probiotics and things like this now, and you might even take it not even knowing why and what it's for. So let's talk a little bit about this, because the microbiome is not only in your gut, it also is in other parts of your body, but um, it's actually distinct. It's almost like a fingerprint for your own body. So we each have a different microbiome, which is created with about 100 trillion bacteria. This is crazy because that is more cells than we have in our body. So we're actually more bacteria than we are human cells, which is mind boggling when you start thinking about it. So for each, it's even greater though than those bacteria, right? Because when you think about it, for each bacterium, there are at least 10 viruses and fungi living in or on our bodies. It's kind of gross. It's like when you see the microscope going in deep and kind of giving you a, a microscopic view of your cells and maybe some of the things living on your body. And you're just like, I don't want to see that. Just like there's pictures you can find out there of the things living in your bed. It's like, I don't want to see that. Anyway, believe it or not, these microbiome, the bacteria, the viruses, the fungi even, are helping us to live. They actually have life-sustaining functions that we cannot live without. All right? So we can't get rid of them. They're here to stay. If we got rid of them, we would get rid of us. And this whole process starts early on in life. So if you look at the way a baby is born, this baby is coming down the birth canal, and along the way is collecting the mom's her microbiome that's living in her vaginal canal, and then her microbiome that might be excreted in feces as the baby's being born. And then there's the aspect of skin to skin, so skin microbiome, right? So there is a lot of opportunity during a vaginal birth for this to happen. Now, if babies are born with C-section, you've got 2 out of those 3 that are taken away. And this is something to consider. And at some point, I will probably dive a little bit deeper into this birth process of developing our gut because it is so important because it's how we're going to start off our life. And this microbiome that we start off with can shape actually some of the things that happen with chronic illnesses later. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But this development occurs in stages where each set a specific microbiome set the stage for the next ones to develop. So it's a process that goes on. It's not a one shot and all. But think about this, and it's something really that I've thought about. If a baby is born with a C section, what can we do then to possibly help, since we know this, help encourage their microbiome so that they are getting the best start in life? So there's no set medical answer for this, but it's something I've thought about, and I've thought of a few things, but I'm not going to go into them right now. But if you did have a vaginal birth, that was the best way to start. If you're having a baby, that is why you want to try to have a vaginal birth. One of the major reasons, if you possibly can. Obviously, if you can't, you can't. And we don't want to dwell on that. But I'm just talking about the optimal situation here, right? So, the other aspect of this, starting off early in life, is breastfeeding. So, with the breast milk comes many gut nurturing properties, including things that help our microbiome. So, there's that skin contact, right? And then there's things in the breast milk that actually we can't process, but the bacteria, the good bacteria, are able to use it as food for that microbiome to develop in a baby. So, um, then, as you are a child growing up, you may have siblings. You're going to be kissing siblings and your mom and your dad and your grandparents. Microbiome transfer is happening there from the mouth, from the saliva. Even things like brushing your teeth, having a family pet, they have a contribution too to this microbiome. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. And then if you're a child who's sickly and maybe you have multiple ear infections and you're put on a lot of antibiotics, or as you're growing and you become a young woman with hormonal changes, you might be having infections or acne and taking some antibiotics for acne. That creates possibly some overgrowth of yeast in the vaginal area. Then you have that situation of dysbiosis. So all of this kind of ties in. But we do know that your gut microbiome has been shown to play a role in things like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or heart disease. Even things like possibly autism and other issues with behavior. And they've studied this, that ADHD and these type of things, that this particular progression of developing your microbiome, if it's disrupted, it can affect what's going on with your neurologic system, your immune system, your digestive system, and ultimately can also affect gene expression. So this is something called epigenetics. It's you have a genetic structure, you have a genetic a DNA in you, but whether that DNA is active or not, or if the switch to turn it on or off is activated, is what we term epigenetics. And those are usually things that we do in our life. So what you're eating, what you're drinking, what if you're taking any medication, if you're exercising, if you're exposed to toxins, all of these things can affect whether those genes are active or not. So another big one, believe it or not, is obesity. So we found again that if you're missing some of those microbiomes as you're coming into this world, there's a greater chance that you will have obesity. Craziness. So 70 to 80% of your immune system resides in your GI tract. And I go into that in the other presentations. So go back and have a listen to them. So if you disrupt your gut microbiome, you're going to automatically disrupt your immune system. So I want to say that again, because right now we're in this challenging time where we're concerned about contracting this virus, which is something that our immune systems are designed to address or attack if necessary, if they're a pathogen, right? If they're disease causing. So if you are not having a good gut function, if your microbiome is disrupted, then you are going to disrupt your immune function and you're going to have a harder time if you get exposed to this coronavirus, especially if you're 80 or above, which they've been finding it's attacking, or if you're already immune compromised or you're sickly. So we should be taking care of our immune health anyway, but especially if you're having challenges, you especially want to take care of your gut. It's so crucial, right? So here is my number one tip of the night. Again, you're probably not going to want to hear this. And I know shelves have been emptied and people are stocking up on things like toilet paper because they feel helpless, they feel fear. There's no reason to stock up on toilet paper, right? But they're taking action. So let's give you a more proactive action, right? Number one, stop eating sugar. I know we're stressed. You're sitting at home looking for things to do. Hopefully you're watching this instead of eating sugar. But sugar, as I've talked about before, is one of the things that's going to disrupt the flora in your gut. It's going to feed any pathogenic yeast there. That's going to create an overgrowth of yeast. That may lead to things like leaky gut, which we'll talk about in a second. And it's going to disrupt a lot of other processes in the body, but especially that balance of the good bacteria and the so-called bad bacteria or pathogenic. Oh my goodness. So this includes alcohol. I'm sorry. I know. The last thing you want to do is give up that glass of wine or have some drinks to kind of, I don't know, ease your boredom, relieve your stress, get up and do some movement, put some music on and dance around, talk with people over social media, actually talk with them, don't just type, because that alcohol is going to make you more vulnerable. All right. On the other side, tip number 2 is eat fermented foods. And these are the things that are going to help feed your good bacteria because they can contain things called prebiotics, and prebiotics feed probiotics. So that's going to be things like kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha. But make sure when you're eating these things that it's not having too much of the sugars in there. So not too much sweet kombucha, more fermented kombucha. Because some of them out there are really sweet. They still taste very sugary to me. I like to make my own so I can balance it out. Then there are other foods that contain things like garlic, leeks, onions, and that's going to be the inulin. And the other things that are going to contain prebiotics would be things like wolfberry, which I consume regularly in wolfberries, or a product called Ningxia Red, which is a puree that's super concentrated and has antioxidants. I don't know why I can't talk today. So there's a couple of other things like apples and beets and cashews, fennel, green peas, pomegranates, asparagus. Jerusalem artichokes are a great source. Persimmons, Savoy cabbage, Cheneau peas, bananas, burdock root, grapefruit, jicama, nectarines, pistachios, seaweeds. Make sure what you're eating, however, is organic. you do not want to eat pesticide or GMO produce because that's going to create stress in another way and also disrupt what's going on in your body. So please, please, please make sure everything is non GMO, pesticide free, organic. Everything that you put into your mouth and on your body and in your world should be free of toxins and chemicals. The more you can do that, the less your system is going to have to work, including your digestive system, which is tied into your detoxification system, which we are going to talk about in 2 weeks. Fermented vegetables also have the benefit of not only supporting your immune system by acting as a prebiotic, but they provide something called vitamin K2. And K2 is necessary to integrate calcium into the matrix of your bone. And if you are taking any vitamin D, you definitely want to make sure you're getting this K2, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to start depositing calcium into things like tendons, and that's going to create a lot of problems. So we want to make sure we're putting it where it needs to go. There's lots of other benefits that we're finding with K2. I'm not going to go into those all tonight, but it also can help with heart disease. So just a little bit of talking about taking a supplement, because eating fermented foods is your best way, but you can also take it with a probiotic, or if you for whatever reason can't take fermented food, you can just take probiotics on their own. And you have to make sure that you're getting the right strain. So you want to make sure that you can look up particular issues that certain strains might be helpful with. Again, too much for tonight. I don't want to lose you. But there are certain species that are going to help certain issues. So you can look those up, right? You don't need me to sit here and rattle that off. But you want to make sure that you are using your product in a timely manner. This is one of those things that you want to look actually for the expiration date, because after that, it really starts to become less active. The other thing is that if your probiotic needs to be refrigerated, it may not be surviving your stomach heat, the warmth, okay, and the whole digestive process. So there are certain strains that are more hardy, and there's something called spore biotics, which are actually the spores of it's actually the cell wall or spores of the bacillus or the bacterium. And they are super hardy. It will bypass your digestive system, so it will survive. And it's going to help boost your immune tolerance. All right. What's really cool about them is because of this protective shell, it's around their DNA. And so they are also unaffected by antibiotics. So if you're taking antibiotics, this is something that can be quite helpful. There are certain strains of probiotics that will work too. And with antibiotics, it means anti-life. That's what the word means. It's indiscriminately killing everything in your gut, good or bad. It doesn't care. And that's why secondary infections and lowered immune function are common side effects of taking antibiotics. Well, guess what? With most infections, like with the coronavirus, people aren't dying of the coronavirus. They're dying of secondary pneumonia because of the respiratory complications. So this makes sense. The virus lowers our immune system, and then where we have our weakest link, it's going to attack there. So you might go, okay, well, I'm not really taking antibiotics. I haven't taken antibiotics since I was a kid. And by the way, before you take antibiotics, get a culture and make sure you actually have a bacterial infection. Do not do it proactively and mess your gut up for nothing. The other places you can get exposure to antibiotics are going to be things like eating meat and farm-fed fish, because those we're actually giving our produce, especially factory farming in any sort of way, but even if they're not factory farmed, We're giving them antibiotics because they're trying to circumvent any infection. So they just put it in their feed. And guess what? You eat that. And if you eat it on a regular basis, guess what? You are going to change what's going on with the flora in your gut, and you're going to change your resistance to bacteria, because bacteria over time, they laugh at those antibiotics. They're like, I'll just use those for food. I don't care. So, if you have dysbiosis, if your microbiome is not optimal and your gut barrier, so I talked about this before, you've got a barrier in your gut that keeps things out that you don't want and lets little things in that you do want, that you want to digest. But if that barrier starts to be leaky, if it's letting in indiscriminately, whatever, then we're calling that leaky gut. And dysbiosis, or overgrowth of bacteria, or overgrowth of bad bacteria or yeast or fungal infections, can certainly contribute to this. So it is super important, because to heal leaky gut is it's such a process, because you have to do things you have to eliminate so many things from your diet. You've got to take other nutrients to help heal. And then you also have to figure out if there are any other things layered on it, like exposure to parasites, etc., or anything that keeps to degrade your gut. And I have been dealing with this. Well, it's a year, last March when I started, and my gut is so much better. But I am deciding that in order to keep my gut healthy, I'm continuing to eliminate certain things like gluten and soy completely from my diet, basically forever. They're just not good for me. And I continue to take things that are going to help heal my gut. And I occasionally will have some of the things that have come up on my sensitivity panel, because that's another thing that happens with leaky gut. It starts to trigger immune reactions. So you might get sensitivities or allergies or even autoimmunity. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So I know I'm healthier for it. And it is something that I can now share with you, because I'm on the other side. And I can empathize as I help people go through. So if you need help to figure out how to do testing for it, to see if you have it, and the process to go through it, I can certainly help you with that pretty much anywhere in the US, because I can send you a test kit and you can go to a lab test, and then I'll get the test sent back, and then we can have a chat either over the phone or on some sort of video conferencing. And I've helped people with that before. So I don't know if there is anybody out there at this point. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and type that in. You can just write it down in the live chat. Or if anybody has had any experience, you can throw up an emoji if you've had leaky gut or issues with your microbiome. Next week, I'm going to go deeper into the secrets of optimal elimination. Yeah, I'm going there. So I hope you can join me live, or of course, you can listen to the replay anytime. If you like the content, not necessarily what I have to say, because I know I'm telling you things you already know, and I know you probably would rather have me just tell you, just take probiotics and you can do whatever you want. But I'm sorry, I got to tell you the truth. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to help you. Share this with people that you think might benefit, and please subscribe, because then you're going to know when I post content. I will be here on Tuesdays, but with what's going on, I may just randomly post something another time. You don't know. All right, everybody, have a great night, and really do the things that you can, and don't worry about the rest. Focus on the positive, and really just keep connected and love the one you're with. And reach out to those people that make you feel good, because when you're happy, your immune system's boosted. And when you're fearful and sad and depressed, your immune system goes down. So be happy. All right. I will see you next week.